So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the WEN Cafe on Global Women's Rights. I'm Catherine Fuchs, the Director of WEN Wales. I'm really delighted to have an incredible panel with us this morning, who I will introduce shortly. But just some context, Women's Equality Network Wales, our vision is a Wales free from gender discrimination, and that means for all the women of Wales, and we won't rest until women and men have equal power and equal opportunity to shape their own lives. So that's what we're all about. And the reason we're interested in global women's rights is for many reasons. But one of the things we've done, which we're really proud of in the last 2 years with Oxfam Cymru, is a feminist scorecard. And the idea of the scorecard is to look at Welsh Government's achievements, because their aim is to be a feminist government. So how far are Welsh Government going in their aim of being feminist? And we score them on 6 different areas. And we've done a feminist scorecard in the last 2 years with Oxfam Cymru, which really goes over 6 different areas. So we look at fair finance, that's around jobs and women. We look at caring, equal representation and leadership, ending violence against women, tackling gender health inequalities, and global women's rights. And so we made some recommendations in the last feminist scorecard, which we published in April, around global women's rights. And we scored the government amber. And we're going to be discussing today some of those areas that are in the scorecard where we think government could do better. And some of our recommendations are things like ensuring free childcare for those in Wales who want to take English as a second language classes. They're around monitoring and evaluating and using gender performance indicators for any work that goes on from Welsh Government internationally. And they're about conducting human rights and gender equality assessments of our trade policies. We'd also like more funding to increase women's leadership in projects supported by Wales and Africa. And we really want to make sure that women are at the forefront in combating climate change. They're going to be most negatively affected by climate change, we believe. And so we really want to see Welsh Government supporting women in tackling climate change. And of course, lots of you will know, one of the 7 goals of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act is around a nation which helps global well-being and also is a globally responsible nation. So it's within that context that we speak today. So I'm really delighted to welcome our first speaker, Barbara Davies-Quay, and she's Head of Programmes at the Size of Wales. So Barbara, I'm going to come to you first with a question. Can you tell us what is the Size of Wales? What are your aims? And also, can you tell us if you think women are impacted by climate change disproportionately? And talk more about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine, and it's a real pleasure to be here today. Size of Wales is a small but ambitious Welsh climate change charity. We were set up over 10 years ago with the aim of protecting 2 million hectares of tropical rainforests, which is the size of Wales. And we do that through supporting local indigenous communities and other forest communities to protect their rainforests in South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. We also help communities in areas that have been highly deforested to plant new trees. And with thanks from the Welsh Government, we are aiming to plant 25 million trees in Uganda this year by 2025. Not only do we work overseas, but we work here in Wales to inspire young people, businesses, the community in general to take action on climate change and address the deforestation crisis. And we've launched this year a really exciting campaign about making Wales a deforestation-free nation. So that's Size of Wales. In terms of climate change and the impact on women, Climate change is intrinsically linked to poverty, impacting the lives of the world's poorest people the most. And we know for a fact that women and girls make up the majority of the world's poor. So the impact of climate change is being felt by them disproportionately. For example, women are more likely than men to be displaced from their homes by changing climate. Women face greater risk of gender-based violence when they are displaced. They are also more dependent for their food and income on the land that is changing because of changes in climate. And also they have to often collect water, food and fuel, and cooking and heating. This is all being threatened by more extreme weather conditions. And unfortunately, women are excluded from decision-making around climate change, but they have huge amounts of knowledge and expertise that could be used to mitigate against climate. And they are often at the forefront of the fight. In Uganda, we have women that kind of share knowledge on tree growing. And in Peru, we're working with indigenous women that are speaking out on logging. But many of these women face violence for doing that. So it's a huge, challenging picture.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Thank you for getting us started. That's fascinating what you're doing. And I think, yeah, very interesting that I guess you're talking in the global south that women are excluded from decision-making on climate change. Or are you talking about here?
I think probably in both contexts. I think women are often excluded. I do think, there has been a huge movement here in Wales, particularly with the youth, and we have seen, we just had a youth climate summit yesterday with some amazing young women and girls speaking about climate change. So I think there is a real move to change that, but I still think a lot more can be done.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot, Barbara. And now I'm really delighted to come to Joyce, Violette and Njini, who is Project Development Officer at Women Seeking Sanctuary Advocacy Group Wales. And we're really delighted to have Joyce with us. Joyce is also has also been on our WEN mentoring scheme. So she is coming from a wonderful evening we had last night celebrating the end of the scheme. So welcome, Joyce. I want to ask you, from your perspective, for women who come to Wales as asylum seekers, how has the pandemic affected them and how has it affected your work?
Hello, everyone. It's a real delight to be here. Just like everyone else, women, the asylum-seeking women and refugee women have had a real difficult time during this pandemic. It's been incredibly hard for them, especially considering that they already have issues of loneliness, lack of opportunities, isolation, and low income issues to deal with. And then this comes in as well. And it just really has knocked them off really terribly. Our organization has been a safe space for them. It's been the only place where they can come in. And for most of them, it's like a second family for them. They really feel comfortable coming in there and meeting with other women and talking, chatting about things that affect them in the same way. And it's been impossible to do that, which is really a shame. And it's been extremely difficult for most of them. However, we've had our food bank, which has been a great resource to the ladies, and they've been so grateful. That has been keeping them going, especially for those who have lost their jobs during this pandemic, those who are in low-income families, those who are on furlough. It's been an amazing resource, and we're really proud of how we've come together as a group, as a family, as a team to keep them going. It's been extremely challenging having to get the resources online, just like everyone adjusting. But we've done our best. We've tried all we could to rally up. This group is mainly run by volunteers, and an amazing crew of women who giving their time, their everything. We've had to go even into our own personal resources to keep things going. And so far, so good. We've managed all right, and our services are now online, every single one of them. We've got courses running online in partnership with the Cardiff University, and we've got the food bank going. We've got mental health workshops going to help the women with tips on self-care, especially considering that they can't come into the center anymore. And yeah, so we've managed all right. It's been really difficult, but credit goes to all the women, all the volunteers who are so selflessly giving their time 100% to keep things going.
Can I just ask a question, Joyce, about whether you just based in Cardiff?
Yes, we are, unfortunately. we're based in Cardiff. And we are aware that there's so many women around Cardiff, in cities in Newport and other places, who would like to benefit from our services. And but due to lack of funding, we can only for now operate in Cardiff, which is a shame. But hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see what happens in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, the sky's the limit. If you have the model of what works well in Cardiff, perhaps that can be rolled out, and perhaps Welsh Government should be supporting you to roll out across North Wales and Mid Wales as well. But we'll come back to you,
Absolutely.
Joyce. Thank you for your first contribution. That's brilliant. I'm now going to go to Aminat Ayodele, who is an advocate for the rights of women and girls, and she runs a Facebook group called The Female Speak Up. And I believe I'm right in saying, Aminat, that you've been here in Wales 1 year from Nigeria. So welcome, Aminat. Welcome to Wales, and welcome to the cafe. Can you tell us, to start off with, about the VSLA, the Village Savings and Loan Scheme you were involved in when you were working for Oxfam in Nigeria, and what was the key to its success?
Okay, well, thank you very much for this opportunity, first and foremost. It's a privilege to be here, and I don't take that for granted. First, I'd like to introduce to us what VSLA aimed to achieve. It's an empowerment strategy that was initiated in 1991. So Oxfam adopted it as part of its strategy to eliminate, to alleviate poverty, especially in the rural areas of Nigeria. It is primarily a group of male and female that comes together to contribute money for a year. It's like a savings scheme whereby money are contributed for a year, and thereby shared, and deposits are shared among members, and they can now continue another cycle. So I would say the key success to that scheme is the fact that the money is being managed strictly by the group members. Nobody gave money to anybody. Nobody received money as a staff of Oxfam. So that gives the people a kind of a sense of belonging and a trust in the scheme and in the organization. So they manage the money themselves without without giving to anybody, just with some kind of supervision and monitoring. Then I'll also say, because there are strict measures in place in terms of security, because you won't want to put your money where you are not sure of its security. So there is a box that is usually meant for a group, whereby the money that is contributed is saved, and this box has 3 different locks. Each of these locks, the keys are given to different people, 3 different people. And these people doesn't have access to the box unless everyone is present. That is the only time the boxes get to open. So even if I have a key, I don't have the box. So the scheme provided that kind of security measure, for the money that is being saved. And the fact that it bridged the gap about access to loan, access to financial institution. We all know how difficult it can be to access loan in financial institutions. Now, considering that in rural area, they have that, they don't have that privilege, they don't have the opportunity. They seem to be at the back in terms of accessing that kind of opportunity. So this came as a way to bridge that gap for them. They can take soft loan that is interest-free and pay that is payable over some period of time. You know, that's actually make them feel comfortable to join. And the fact that it places everyone that has the same financial status in the same group, it fosters unity, it fosters love, and it fosters, other community development. You see a group of people that don't just come together to save money, but they also want to do something in their community, you know. So it's a kind of trying to create a kind of balancing among people of the same financial status. For the fact that I have 5,000 naira does not mean I have to bring out the whole 5,000 naira. I have to join my own group of people that I can contribute the same level with. So if I know I can't afford up to that amount, I have to join that can contribute something that is lower, that is on my status. So there's a kind of balance and a kind of love and unity in the community. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Aminat. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Your excellent work. And I'm going to now move on to Martha Musonza Holman, who is a teacher and founder of the charity Love Zimbabwe. And she's also one of our WEN 100 Welsh women, doing amazing things in Wales. So Martha, welcome. And can you tell us about your charity, Love Zimbabwe, what you do?
Thank you. I just want to say, for me, it's also a privilege, you know, to be here talking about the work that women are doing. It makes me feel so good to be part of these amazing, strong women we are lucky to be based here in the developed world. And when we think of the other women, especially if I look at people like Aminat, Joyce, we have been lucky to move into this world. But when we think back where we come from, it's hard. Women are suffering, women are struggling. So that was the incentive for me to establish a charity. The name Love Zimbabwe says it all. Zimbabwe has gone through a lot of pandemics. I think the coronavirus is one of hundreds that we have gone through. Love Zimbabwe was created for the love of the people, especially women, mothers of disabled children. I grew up in a village and I know what poverty is. I know the difficulties that women go through in Africa, especially with the patriarchal systems. So I've established two organizations. I've got a charity which raises awareness of the work that we do to support these women, to eradicate the stigma that is existing, that still exists in our communities, even just us as Africans. And also I've got Love Zimbabwe Fair Trade, because if we look at what is happening now, let's look what is happening now. We have to find out, we have to come up with strategies to empower these women. So I have created this organization which believes in the power of trade, the power of fair trade. How can we get these women out of the pandemics? How can we help these women to be self-sufficient? So my organization encourages women to make arts and crafts that I import here. And I shouldn't say I, because I've got lots of people behind me, including Fair Trade Wales. I believe in the work of Fair Trade Wales because they are empowering organizations like Love Zimbabwe. I believe in the Welsh government because without them, my work would be nothing. Because without money, we can't do it. Without financial, everyone has talked about the difficulties. Why Joyce is only in Cardiff is because she is restricted. Why am I based in Abergavenny? I like Abergavenny, I like living amongst farmers, but it's hard for us people here. So this is part of diaspora initiative that I have started to find ways how we can help people in Africa. So with Love Zimbabwe, we have a community center, same like Joyce, and this community center has become a space where women come, but our focus mainly those with disabled children. They come there, we educate them about health, we educate them about how to look after the children. There are issues with like children who are autism. In Africa, most of us don't understand what autism is. So we have established this center through Love Zimbabwe charity to educate local communities and also to educate people in power to understand the difficulties that these mothers are going through. So I'm really happy to be part of this amazing, amazing platform, because I think I'm gonna take a lot from here that will help the Love Zimbabwe charity, that will help people back in Africa, but also that will help people here in Wales to understand all the good work that we are doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martha. I love listening to you. And I think what your charity is doing is incredible. And I like the way you're tackling it from both ends. You're with the decision makers and the parents themselves. And that's something very much at WEN's heart as well. We run some projects like our mentoring scheme, and to create a pipeline of future leaders that are diverse and representative, but we also lobby government to make sure that they are doing the right thing. And I think it's so important to do it from both ends, which actually I think all of these organizations we've got on the call are doing. So I'm going to come back to Barbara now. Barbara, I'd like to ask you something which I was really shocked about. And how do you think the reduction in the UK aid budget will impact the global South and developing countries? If we can start with Barbara, though I'm sure everyone's got something to say about it.
Well, I'm just deeply disappointed and shocked, as I'm sure everyone on this call is. You know, now is not the time to be cutting global aid. We are in a global pandemic. Millions of people are going to be entering into poverty because of this. And as we heard before, women and girls make up the world's majority of the poor. So this will have a negative impact on women and girls. So not only are we likely to see poverty levels increase, but we are facing a climate crisis. And countries in the global South are suffering the greatest impact of that climate crisis. So this isn't a good message to send out, and particularly with the UK government hosting the Global Climate Change Conference next year. This isn't a good sign to say that we are reducing aid budget at a time when we should be doubling efforts to tackle both the climate crisis and the pandemic and just poverty and exclusion. So yeah, just really deeply shocked and disappointed.
Thank you, Barbara. Now I'm going to come back to Joyce. I've got another question for you, Joyce, around do you think that the Welsh Government's Nation of Sanctuary approach is working?
Hi again. I would say that we're really pleased with all the efforts that are being made for Wales to be a nation of sanctuary, which is amazing. There's a lot of positive energy around it. So many people are rallying around to ensure that this happens. And it gives us a lot of hope. We're really hopeful for the future. However, there's always room for improvement. And I feel that it should be, we should be given some time scales as and when things would actually be happening, and all the changes will be taking place. And for me, the most important thing when I read everything that's been going on, I felt like the help should be coming. We should be starting maybe from the bottom, looking at how we can help women, in particular migrant women, get their feet back on the ground, help them build their self-confidence, help them out of because when you go through the asylum system, you kind of, your confidence levels get really knocked down, and it is hard. It doesn't matter what people do. It doesn't matter what opportunities are out there, it is difficult to actually grab those opportunities. So it's actually, for me, it's actually looking at how we can support organizations such as ours to instill confidence in these ladies, to raise their confidence levels, to encourage them to be able to engage, to make them believe in themselves, and that is the only way they can actually seize these opportunities, because tackling it from somewhere in the middle would really not help. We've got opportunities, the opportunities for people to go into education, for instance, and empower themselves. But because of the trauma that they've been through, because of all the horrible events, experiences that they've had, maybe in the asylum system or in their journeys to the UK, it's just hard for them to really believe in themselves. It's so difficult. And I am really pleased with what the Welsh Nation of Sanctuary is doing, what they are aiming to do. But I feel that we could engage more with the people who are most concerned. If we could talk to the ladies, if we could have some more representation from those groups within these sessions, it would make a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Very eloquently put. Yeah. So I wanted to ask Aminat now, which kind of links to this, you know, how welcoming is Wales? You came here a year ago. Have you felt welcomed and supported? And what has your experience been, Aminat?
Well, okay, thank you very much. I would say the last 1 year has been the best of my life. And apart from the fact that I discovered myself and believe that I can be more than who I am, I love the fact that I found myself in a calm environment where people show courtesies and manners, where people show love. And I can't say I love Wales. I have felt welcomed and I love it. That's what I have to say.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that. That's great. Yeah. I'm glad you've had a positive experience. So Martha, I'd like, would you mind talking a bit about how climate change is impacting those you support via your charity in Zimbabwe, and also how you think the reduction in the UK aid budget that, like I asked Barbara earlier, will impact the Global South? Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me back. Well, we all know the southern region has been affected tremendously. The past few years, maybe 5 years or so, we have lost track of our seasons. So especially these women that we support, most of them, they survive on subsistence crop production. So you can imagine a situation whereby a woman has got just a few, they haven't got access to credits, they haven't got access to loans. The little money that they have, they procure their seeds, materials, and yet when they plant, there are no rains. When I grew up, I knew when was the time to plant. November was the time when people started farming, and they knew when was the time to harvest. That doesn't exist anymore. So this has been very difficult for every woman in the southern region, and yet they've got no voice as well on political issues. We know in Africa, women, we're talking about equal opportunities here in Wales. We are lucky. I keep repeating that we are lucky, and sometimes we don't realize how lucky we are. Women in Africa, because of patriarchal systems, the man is the ruler of the house. So the woman is left in that village where the climate is affecting her. She's not producing anything, so she can't send her child to school. She can't buy school uniform. She relies on that subsistence agriculture. And now, where does she get money from if she can't produce with this climate change? And most of these women have no understanding about the climate change. They think it's a godly thing. So now instead of spending time in the farms, they're spending time up the mountains praying. spending a whole day up the mountain with no food with these children, thinking that God has taken them. And I think that is really not fair. And I think by reducing the funding, it's a bullet. It's a bullet for African people to bite. And I think time has come for deeper and more direct involvement of us Africans. I think we are being enlightened to set our own development course, to start thinking. There is an African proverb which goes, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. So this whole thing, the best time is now. So let us, we Africans, let us not waste any more time. We are being told, we are being given. It's our moment now to start acting. What can we do now? Let's not stop believing in this aid, stop believing in our governments. Our government has let us down. Aid, I know it's gonna, a lot of people are going to suffer. Look at these young children who've been dying. Look at malnutrition. Look at education. If you think about Dembisa Moyo, she has talked about aid. Africa has been recipient of aid from developed world for how many years? Donkeys of years. But where are we now? Where is our infrastructure? Where is our education? A person goes to university at the University of Zimbabwe, there's no chance of getting a job. No chance. So this aid, the reduction of aid is going to affect a lot of organizations like myself. I have developed it. I Love Zimbabwe Charity is dependent on international development aid. So if we don't get it, how are we going to help these communities? What are we going to do? Despite the money which has been going through the, sorry, I'm going to stop now. We know our leaders have misusing the aid, but we know we have had international development organizations such as Oxfam, we've talked about Oxfam, such as us, where you know that the aid has been channeled directly to the people who needed it. So when it's not there, how are we going to help these people? Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. That was an incredibly eloquent description of the problems we will have with the aid being cut. And at this point, I'd like to bring in Rachel Cable, who's on the call from Oxfam Cymru, because Oxfam have got, I think we need to start thinking about solutions and what we must all do. We all need to take action. So Rachel, what can we do?
Thanks, Catherine, and thanks to the panel. Really interesting contributions so far. And I'd really like to get in, maybe in a minute, into the meat of talking about what we might be asking for ahead of the next election in Wales. So I'd definitely be keen to hear from the panel on that. But I just wanted to quickly say what Oxfam's doing on the aid cut. So Oxfam has a government relations team, and basically that team's job is to be in Westminster talking to the government and MPs about you know, the range of issues that we work on. But obviously the biggest issue for us most recently is the cut to the aid budget. One of the things about the pandemic, as well as the immediate health risk to people, is it risks pushing an additional 115 million people into extreme poverty. And so that pot of money, there are obviously questions on how the aid budget is and should be spent, but we need the commitment of the cash to make sure that we can support people around the world going forward. So Oxfam's working in coalition with a range of organisations, asking people to write to their MPs to support the budget. I have put the link in the box, and there is some suggested text that you can use if you want to write to your MP. Obviously, you can amend that or make your own arguments. But I think it's really, really important that not only our politicians in Cardiff Bay, but that our politicians in Westminster hear loud and clear why this decision is devastating, frankly, for the sector at this point in history. So I would really urge you, you know, listen to the contributions on this call and think about writing to your MP after today, because we must protect that cash going forwards. It's really important.
Thank you, Rachel. I couldn't agree more. Now, can I ask anybody on the floor of the meeting, first of all, I apologise if you have problems getting in. I'm really sorry about that. We had an Eventbrite glitch, we think, but welcome all the people who've joined us recently. Can I ask if anyone has a question that they either pop their hand up now or pop in the chat their question. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask our panel each to say what's the one thing they would ask ahead. I'm going to take Rachel's question. What's the one thing that they would put in their manifesto for the First Minister, the next Welsh Government? What is it they need to do to ensure global women's rights? Thank you. I'll come to Barbara first.
And I think evidence has shown that where women are involved in decision making, much better decisions around climate change are resulted. And you know, women are much more in tune with what is happening to their land. As Martha said, they are so intrinsically linked to the land and the climate, and they really know what's going on. So I think, you know, can we promote these women to be leaders in their country? And I think, you know, what the WEN mentoring did, and I was part of that process and heard the amazing stories of women in Wales, you know, making, you know, getting those leadership roles. Can we be supporting women overseas to have those leadership roles from community level upwards? Because often women don't have the right to land. As Martha said, it's the men that control that. So can we address these real fundamental kind of barriers to women to participate and to tackle the biggest crisis that we're facing, which is climate change? So I think that would be one of the things that I would say to the First Minister.
Okay, and Joyce, what would you ask to happen ahead of, for, you know, what do you want all political parties to embrace and have in their manifestos ahead of the May 2021 elections?
Thank you again. I would like for some changes to be made in how women, migrant women in particular, are being supported. I feel like if there's more support, if there's more funding for organizations and groups such as ours who support women to regain their self-confidence and grab opportunities that come their way, if this kind of funding is made available to more and more organizations and services such as ours are spread out across the country, then we can have the representation eventually that we want in public life, in public office, because there's no point making those positions available if there's no people, no women who would be willing or who would feel confident enough to go and grab those opportunities or even give themselves a try in the first place. So I feel that we should be getting the support. We should be getting a lot more support from the government to carry on with the services we're offering, to support the women from when they get granted status to remain in this country, to elevate their confidence levels, to make them believe in themselves, to be able to go and reach out for anything that they want to do, actually, yeah.
Thank you, Joyce. Yeah, one of the things we've got in our WEN manifesto that's been developed in collaboration with our members and our gender network is we were really pleased that Welsh Government acted very fast and in fact was the first UK nation to remove no recourse to public funds so that asylum seekers could actually access refuge and access public funds during the pandemic. But we really want to see that extended past the pandemic, most definitely. And another key ask, I think, in this area around poverty is making sure that the Westminster government keep the universal credit increase of in place again into the next financial year. So Aminat, I wanted to ask you about what some of the solutions you think to these problems that we're discussing, but also I wanted to give you this opportunity to talk about your Facebook network that you set up and why you set it up and what that's been doing. Okay,
thank you. Okay, let me just start from the Facebook network. So there's this, I was inspired to create that network because back in Nigeria, I had this group of, large group of girls living in a hostel, in a local school. So I met them and sensitize them on good hygiene about menstruation and also encourage them to speak up on abuse because they literally were living among young boys and men. So, and after that sensitization, I realized that about 4 of those girls, about 16 years of age, they followed myself and a colleague that we went together. They followed us quietly and were trying to say something, but they weren't confident to talk. So we had to draw them closer to ask them, what do they have in mind to say? So one of them were like, oh, she hadn't seen her period for like 6 months, and she wasn't sure what the problem was. So, you know, we had to feel concerned about what she has been keeping for a long time. They were not living with their parents, and they were just under the custody of a man who serves as a teacher in the local school. So I imagined how many of those girls, how many of women have issues that are bothering their minds, especially the ones that can greatly affect their reproductive life. So I imagine so many issues bothering the minds of girls, bothering the minds of women, but because they don't have, because somebody has not shown interest in listening to them, they kept dying in silence. So that's actually, when I left Nigeria, the dream to create an avenue where people can confidentially share their stories, where they can confidentially share their worries without bothering about being judged, without worrying about what anyone will say. That dream kept coming to me, and I knew that it was high time I created a platform for that. And I chose Facebook because I believe that Facebook is commonly accepted by both elites and the common people. So I believed I would be able to reach a larger audience by using Facebook. So presently, what I do primarily is to encourage people, to sensitize them, to talk about what is affecting their life instead of going into depression, instead of affecting their emotional well-being, you know. So, and I would say that we have recorded good success of people that come into inbox to say things like, oh, it has happened to me too. I have been abused at my workplace before, you know. So I have a plan that in the nearest future, I will be able to create a team from the community, a passionate team that will be empowered such that they can go outside, because it's not everybody that have the opportunity to be on Facebook. So I want to have a team whereby they will be able to go outside to also sensitize people, especially little girls in primary and secondary school. They can encourage them to speak up on bullying, abuse, and so many other issues like that the parents told that you are not going to be educated because you are a girl. There was a case recently that I saw. A 13-year-old girl was pregnant, and she wasn't the only one. She's just one out of 6 girls. She said it on camera that her father told them point blank that he wasn't going to sponsor their education because they are girls. So they had just one boy, and he told them that is the only person that will get educated. So this girl had to scut with someone, got pregnant along the line. The person that impregnated her went away, and she started living from hand to mouth, trying to feed herself. Same with her sisters. So you can imagine if there is an avenue for people to tell other people about their worries. Maybe that kind of thing wouldn't have happened to that girl, you know. So that is the inspiration for me that made me create that platform. Then looking at the current situation, if I have the opportunity to talk to the First Minister, or if I am in a position to be in a First Minister, I will prioritize supporting other countries in ensuring that every girl child gets educated. because without education, you can't be talking about you can't be talking about it is only when people are enlightened that is when they know that health is very important. That is when they know that they need to go and access health in the health center instead of staying at home and giving birth at home or doing other things that can impact their lives. It is only when people are enlightened that is when they know that they can own properties, they can own lands, and they can also participate in decision making. Without enlightenment, nothing would happen. So I would make sure that I prioritize support for people, especially girl child, because that is when they would be able to fit in other areas of life. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I mean, that's really interesting that both you and Martha earlier talked about the importance of education. So you're saying education, that girls must be educated, and Martha talked about climate change and how in Zimbabwe, people are almost blaming it on God, and they're not. So if we need we need women and girls to be educated to understand. Yeah, absolutely, I get that. I would actually like to use my chair's privilege to bring in, if she's still here, Marianne Brocklesby. Marianne, are you still here?
I am.
Great, because Marianne's got experience in this area. She's a WEN mentee, although she could have been mentoring all the rest of us, and I know she's going to have a good point to make.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Joyce, Aminat and Martha. It's good to see you. I think there's 3 points that I'd like to have a chat to the First Minister with, and several other ministers around the world, given the opportunity. The first is, we've had to have some very serious discussions in the aid sector because of Black Lives Matters, and decolonisation of aid has to be at the forefront of all that we do. And it's good to see that the voices here are voices of lived experience, of women who know what aid means, and also know their voice can count if we change the power relations within the aid sector. And I think Martha put it better than I did. And we're still far behind that. So when we're looking at women's leadership, we are thinking of it in terms of decolonisation of aid, so that the women who are leading on this are the women who have experienced poverty, who have experienced being refugees, who have experienced have their livelihoods smashed to the ground because of climate change, who have experienced being excluded. Thirdly, I would say the real pandemic we are facing is violence against women. And this pandemic has been raging in the world for decades. And unless we put safeguarding and fighting violence against women at the forefront of every aid policy, including climate action, then women leaders are facing that insurmountable barrier of violence. We all know, as Mary Beard put it, when women put their heads above the parapet, they face attack. And when Black women and women in colour put their face above the parapet, they face being attacked, vilified, and we have case after case after case. My third one is great aid. Let's get it back to 1%. Actually, I'd like to tax you all. If we can get tax changes of multinationals, a 1% tax on financial transactions, which Oxfam and others have been fighting for decades as well, but also fair and equitable tax in African countries and in Asian countries. And that tax was channeled where it should do, to the bottom 40% within countries. That would be far, far more effective than any north to south aid programme. So that those would be, and I don't know what the panel thinks, but those would be my demands.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I can't see anyone else with their hand up. So would anyone on the panel like to respond to that? Martha?
sorry, hello. Marianne, thank you so much. You have really said it all. You have really said it all. That is what you have said. It's amazing. It's perfect. And also we also as Africans, I think we also need to highlight back to our own African leaders. They need to think outside the box. They now need, because I feel, okay, reduction in aid, but most of them have been blindfolded. They've been blindfolded by this aid. They now need to shift focus. They now need to shift their focus towards trade, right? They need to start improving the tax system in Africa. Africa is a rich nation, let's not forget that. Africa still got its resources, but what's happening with these resources? We need to capitalize on taxing the minerals, right? We need to find solutions. We need to find a way to come out of this out of all this mess that we are going to go into if we rely on aid. So we also need to start taxing on agriculture and productivity development for the best of those societies who are at the grassroots level. But also for me, I would recommend, I would urge that there is an introduction of fair, ethical trade between development nations. Let's look back at India. Where was India? Right down at the bottom. But with improvement in trade, we can get there. So let's not just cry our tears because the aid has been reduced. Let's now think outside the box. We diasporas, we know without us, our nations back home, our countries will be dead. So it's not just aid that has helped Africa. It's us, our remittances. Every time we get paid, our money goes back home to support our families, to support our villages. But now without this aid, we need to get together now and start thinking what's the best way, what can make us come out of poverty. We are the earpieces, we diasporas. We need to speak to our governments back home that they should be blindfolded by the aid that they've received, which has not helped anything but left us in deep, deep poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Some really good, strong ideas there. I'd like to go back to Joyce now, because I know she really wants to talk a bit more about the work of her fantastic charity, Women Seeking Sanctuary. So over to you, Joyce. And then Constance, if you would like to say something after Joyce, I know you're on the call because you've put some great comments in the chat.
Thank you, Catherine. Well, this is where I thrive. So Women Seeking Sanctuary Advocacy Group Wales was created by my amazing sister, Constance, who herself at the time was an asylum seeker and was facing all sorts of difficulties, destitution and you name it. And so she rallied a couple of other ladies with whom she was in the same kind of predicament, and they decided to come together and create this organization as sort of a safe space where they could come in and talk about their problems and support each other and be there for each other. And this happened in 2009. And amazingly, it's been going on. It's grown from strength to strength. Sadly, not very many people know about this, but it's been an amazing resource for migrant women, for asylum seeking and refugee women. It's been tremendous what the kind of benefits that these women have had from this organization. And the amazing part about it is how the women who have benefited come back to give back to this organization, to give back to their communities, to help other women who are just coming in. And that is the strength of our organization. So it's like a family, and we've seen women grow from strength to strength from the moment they walk in through the doors, looking all timid and shy and not feeling like they're enough, not feeling like they are valued, from, you know, being strong women who go on to further their education and then carry on with their careers and come back into the organization to give back to the women who are coming in. So it's incredible. I feel that this is something that should be supported across Wales, particularly for women, because I have seen firsthand how helpful our services have been to these women. For most of them and their families, children and husbands, WSSAG is a second home to them. And the services are just amazing. We put in so much. It's done out of passion and nothing else, just passion to help people, to encourage women, because we've all been there. It's hard enough for women, let alone, you know, being a migrant woman, having maybe experienced the trauma in the asylum system, or having gone through horrific experiences, crossing over to the UK through whatever means. So it's really, and I feel so strongly about this. The Welsh government should be doing a lot more to support women. If we want to deal with, we want to increase diversity within the public life, this is the absolute way to go. These kind of services need to be supported. They need a lot more funding. And women, we know that wherever women are gathered, a lot of good things happen. And it is our strength as women is in us supporting each other. That is my belief. And so it's really important for us to encourage such services. We help the women provide free courses with partner organizations, partner schools, universities such as the Cardiff University, mental health workshops, well-being workshops. We do different sorts of things that just really help the women feel like they're valued, that they're enough, that they can do whatever they feel like doing. And we've had so many women. I've had two of such women who have gone on I've got Carol, who's currently gone to study psychology in the Cardiff University, and she came in just 2 years ago. She's not stopped being appreciative of the help, the support that we've given her. She came in very downcast, very downtrodden, and once she started volunteering and attending the sessions and at the coffee mornings and the employment workshops and all of that, her confidence grew from strength to strength. And then she went in to get a job, and even though she is a single mom of 3, she's done all this, and now she's studying psychology in the Cardiff University, which is amazing. She wants to be a clinical psychologist, which is just, I feel so proud of her. And this is just one of such cases. And now the women are looking up to, doing a lot more with their lives than just sitting down and feeling sorry for themselves. And this, I feel, should be encouraged. It should be encouraged. There should be funding for such services. There should be a lot more support. There should be awareness, creating awareness around this, because this is the only way we can get diversity within the public life and that equality that we're seeking. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce. That is, yeah, very eloquent, and it's really good to hear about examples of where you've specifically helped a woman. And I mean, I know you will have helped many, many women, but you need more funding, absolutely. And I'd like to, I'm going to come to the other 3 panel members shortly to ask you to kind of wrap up and finish. But before I do, I just want to point out the wonderful work that Constance has done. She's absolutely brilliant. We've done some workshops with Constance and she's amazing. And her comment here is around, you know, for women who've arrived in the UK as sanctuary seekers, the challenges and barriers to participating in public life are really huge. We need to be empowering them in public life, to be in public life at the grassroots level. And for that, they need more resources and funding. And really what I've taken from the event is it's about education, it's about funding, it's about support, and it's about us all campaigning and using our collective voices. I think, oh, Claire O'Shea's got a last question about the aid budget not only being cut, but being repurposed to serve British interests. Yeah, I would argue that this is neo-colonialism, absolutely, and puts more strings on money that should be spent on the world's poorest. So I think that's a good question to end with, but I'm going to go to Martha, then Barbara, then Aminat, and then we must wrap up because I know people have to go. So what would you prioritise for the aid budget? And a final comment. So Martha.
Sorry. Well, as I said before, I believe in strategies that help to empower women. So I would personally put trade as the first priority, then climate change. But we need to empower women in enterprising. So I think that's where I would prioritize this more.
Thank you, Martha. Over to you, Barbara.
I think, as I said before, I think climate change and women's rights are totally linked. So I think that by addressing the climate crisis, we are also empowering women to have control over their resources, their land, and they are often, you know, it's not a coincidence that many Indigenous people call our planet Mother Earth, because, you know, women have that close connection to our precious planet. So I think that's really important, but also what Martha said about trade. And we need to have fair trade. And I'm really concerned that not only with the changes in aid budget, but with new trade agreements being signed post-Brexit, that we could have trade with countries where human rights violations are happening, where women are excluded, where there's environmental destruction, and trade should not come at any cost. So I think that needs to be looked at very closely.
Thank you, Barbara. Very good point, well made. The B word, Brexit. Aminat, over to you for the final word.
Okay, thank you. So in the aid budget, I would also say I'll prioritize women empowerment, because why I say that is because the VSLA methodology, while working on with Oxfam, I realized the level of poverty that has entered a typical rural woman. Because without women being empowered, poverty will still be the main problem. Do you get it now? And one of the things I was trying to raise the other time when Martha was talking is the fact that the Oxfam was able to let government of the states where that project was being carried out, they were able to persuade the government in buying into the initiative, in buying into the scheme, such that because the scheme doesn't really involve putting so much money in it, it is self-managed. It is self-managed, it is an independent, whereby people don't have to wait for government to do things for them again. It means you don't let this situation define you. There are other things you can do to get yourself out of poverty. And the focus is to empower women. If women are not empowered, then we'll keep rounding about in one place. So how prioritize that in the budget? Thank you.
Thank you so much to our audience. I'm sorry we've overrun a little bit, and thank you to our amazing panelists. I feel like I've learned so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Please do join WEN Wales. If you're not a member, please do join us. The link is on our website, www.wenwales.org.uk, and it's free to join us, and you'll find out about all our incredible events like this. You'll find out about our mentoring scheme, and you can really become part of our network. And I think I loved what one of you said, was it Joyce? But you all alluded to it. When women come together, incredible things can happen. So please do join us, stay connected and stay safe. And a huge thank you to our panelists, and to Megan from WEN behind the scenes, who does all the organising for this so brilliantly. So thank you all so much.